Here is a recap of Plathville's 7th-season finale, the one where everyone finally splits up. It's finally time for the Welcome to Plathville finale after an action-packed season filled with slow-moving divorces, marriages, and a physical brotherly fight. Lydia and Zach, who recently got married, are getting ready to go on their honeymoon when this week's episode begins. While traveling to the airport, the contented couple extols the virtues of their wonderful and peaceful wedding, blissfully oblivious to the fact that Isaac and Micah transformed the after-party into a two-man fight club. Zach and Lydia are questioned about their wedding night, specifically whether they did more than give each other a front hug and a mouth kiss, but they are not allowed to add anything to the breakdown of brotherly abuse. The obviously awkward couple promises viewers that their night was pure and beautiful, but they don't reveal whether Lydia was wedding heels up to Jesus that evening. The partial Plath family gathering is still ongoing in a much less pure and beautiful setting, and Veronica's chances of returning for another season of this program are looking a lot like Micah's smashed mug, bad. Micah tells viewers that he and Veronica should either splash everything out on the table and work things out or splash everything out on the table and end their relationship. It's becoming messy either way. Micah agrees, telling Veronica that he also wants her to stop trying to find dirt on his family and smearing mud about them. The Plaths demand that Veronica conform after scolding her for saying in the previous episode that she wanted to be like Olivia, Ethan's wife and current enemy of the Plath family. Micah starts enumerating Veronica's transgressions as she tries to explain herself, such as lying about Ethan's girlfriend Tegan's presence on OnlyFans. In response, Veronica shares with the group that she and Micah have been in therapy since Micah cheated on her. She also acknowledges that she was worried he would be seduced by Tegan and her purportedly spicy side business. Tegan tells viewers that she simply feels sorry for Veronica, but Ethan thinks this is a silly excuse. In the meantime, Veronica acknowledges to producers that she may have been mistaken about Micah and that she may have been mistaken about Tegan being on OnlyFans. "I might be mistaken about being a blonde," she continues. "I could also be mistaken about not being the mayor." Micah expresses that he would like an apology from Veronica for the name-calling and belittling, but Isaac is adamant about keeping the discussion about his resentment of Veronica when he chose to rearrange Micah's face. Kim adds that she thinks Veronica is at the root of the problem after Ethan, Isaac, and Micah reassure Veronica that they think she unintentionally started the brother fight. Although Kim maintains that everyone in the family gets along, and that Veronica is the common denominator, Veronica argues that the physical altercation may have actually resulted from the hot mess Plath family dynamics. Ethan then criticizes Veronica for going to Lydia and Zach's wedding just to hang out with the cows. Micah observes that Veronica's behavior has forced him to decide whether to prioritize her over his family or to cut off all contact with her, even though spending time with farm animals sounds considerably superior to going out with the Plaths. Micah tells Veronica that they must make reservations to return to Boca Raton and formally end their relationship after considering the option for just 2 seconds. Isaac, who is the one who sent Micah to the hospital less than 12 hours before, offers to accompany Micah and assist him with packing. Micah and Ethan imply that Veronica wanted Micah to end their relationship when she doesn't respond to this information, which Veronica admits to producers might be the case. After the group leaves, Veronica and Kim exchange a few words, and Veronica, somewhat surprised, apologizes for discussing Kim behind her back. Ethan says that Veronica missed out on a good family. Veronica essentially admits to producers that she has been causing trouble in Micah's family for pleasure, just when we believe she has changed for the better. Next, viewers see clips of Veronica talking down to Micah, talking to Olivia behind everyone's back, and accusing Micah in couples therapy of looking up nude pictures of his brother's girlfriend are included, along with Veronica's gleeful admission 4 months prior that her actions were likely to cause things to explode any second. Veronica attributes her peculiar social experiment to her bad relationship, but she asserts Micah's family just made matters worse. She then accepts some responsibility for her actions while becoming emotional. In the end, Micah realizes it's not a good idea to be stuck in a car with his cunning ex-girlfriend for 7 hours. He leaves her with producers so they can safely escort her home, which they do after taking a plane the next day. To pick up his possessions, Micah, Ethan, and Isaac drive his truck to Florida in the interim. And what remains of his honor? Micah reveals that he and Veronica had an emotional farewell down in Boca, and then he and his brothers reassure viewers that they didn't abandon Veronica somewhere on the side of the road, as Barry claims Veronica is claiming on the internet, the virtual realm. 2 days later, the Plath brothers return to the farm, where Micah intends to stay for a week before heading back to Florida to continue his fencing. Ethan maintains that Veronica is lying when she claims that the Plaths are a group of animal abusers that engage in incest. The Plath family farm is later undergoing a controlled burn, which Micah explains is being carried out to avoid a more devastating fire in the future. Micah acknowledges that he cheated on her during their time together after drawing a comparison between this procedure and his infamous connection with Veronica. The next day, Kim and Ethan celebrate the fact that they finally took care of Micah's annoying girlfriend by lighting up cigars like their fundy godfathers. In their conversation, Ethan laments that he wishes he had ended his marriage to Olivia as soon as Micah did with Veronica. But he also reminds viewers that he and his parents are still legally married due to a paperwork error on his part. After going along with Olivia for all those years, Ethan apologizes to Kim, saying he now understands that you cannot shut off your family for your spouse's sake, even if they are, well, fairly nasty. Kim takes the apology and admits to the audience that she has first-hand knowledge of how difficult it can be to keep a marriage together. More difficult? Ethan asks Zach how the deed went on his and Lydia's wedding night and instructs his brother-in-law to ensure those croissants are filled with cream during a FaceTime with Kim and Ethan with Lydia and Zach, who are on their honeymoon in Paris. What on earth are we observing? Really? Between his awkward and spooky remarks, Ethan and Kim also bring up Micah and Isaac's argument and Micah and Veronica's split. We meet again a month later in Georgia, where Olivia is spending the weekend there taking wedding photos. She consents to speak with Ethan while she is in town, at his request. Olivia informs viewers before to Ethan's arrival that she and her partner Brendan are presently residing in Washington, D.C., and that although they are still legally married, Olivia feels spiritually divorced from Ethan. In addition, Olivia discloses that after 1.5 years, Ethan unblocked her on social media and then promptly contacted her to discuss a speedy divorce, which she believes was a result of him aggressively starting his relationship with Tegan. When Ethan eventually shows up to meet Olivia, nearly 2 hours late, to be exact, he gets right to the point, telling her that they can finalize their divorce in a few weeks once she gets in touch with his lawyer. Ethan informs the audience that although he has been attempting to dissolve his marriage for some time, Olivia's paperwork error, not his, prolonged their marriage. In typical Plath form, Olivia tries to explain what truly transpired, but Ethan doesn't listen. Ethan then asks Olivia to stop slandering him and his family in public. Olivia responds that she isn't slandering them. Rather, she is merely discussing her own life experiences, the most of which were terrible while she was with Ethan and his family. Ethan continues, stating that the allegations Olivia has made about his family are not nearly as horrible as she has made them seem. If they were, he claims it is because Olivia created them. Olivia responds by telling Ethan that although the 10 years she spent with him and his family were difficult, they helped shape who she is now, and that she cannot simply erase those memories from her memory. Like the main character he is, in his own imagination, Ethan abruptly stands up from the table, pushes in his chair, instructs Olivia to do what you want, and leaves after not receiving the response he wants. A few blocks away from Ethan and Olivia's in-person meeting after their breakup, Kim and Barry are celebrating their official divorce in a wine bar. The once happy couple enjoys their beverages, talks about their plans for the future, and comes to the joint conclusion that their son's transgressions, especially those of Ethan, were entirely the result of the terrible women they were seeing or married to and had nothing to do with their parents. But one of the most intricate plots in Welcome to Plathville is the tale of Kim and Ethan Plath's romance. Years of quiet, conflict, miscommunication, and ultimately, gestures toward healing are all part of this story. Viewers noted the difference between Ethan and his mother, Kim, as soon as the cameras started following the Plath family. Ethan's connection with his parents was strained as a result of his recent marriage to Olivia. Kim, The family's stern but protective matriarch found it difficult to relinquish authority. In contrast, Ethan desired freedom, the ability to make his own decisions, to live a life with his wife without hindrance, and to leave behind the restricted environment that had characterized his early years. Kim and Ethan didn't talk much at first. Long periods of avoidance, awkward silences, and passive-aggressive comments characterized their discussions in the early seasons. Ethan believed that Kim's refusal to accept Olivia was a betrayal. Kim, on the other hand, believed that Ethan had abandoned the principles she had spent so much time teaching her kids. Once seemingly indestructible, the mother-son link had nearly completely broken. For years, whenever Kim was around, Ethan wouldn't go to the family house. Family get-togethers turned into battlefields where his absence could be heard as loudly as his presence. Frequently stuck in the middle, Micah and Mariah yearned for reconciliation while attempting to maintain harmony. However, people change with time, and something started to change inside Kim and Ethan in the quiet moments in between arguments. As he grew older, Ethan understood that his wrath was a burden even though it was legitimate. To carry it was to live through the agony of the past all the time. And Kim started thinking back on her errors in her own manner. She had witnessed the disintegration of her marriage to Barry, the dispersal of her children, and the realization that love and control were not the same thing. The pivotal moment occurred when Ethan consented to have coffee with Kim one calm day. It wasn't videotaped in front of the entire family, nor was it a lavish reunion. Sitting opposite from one another in a tiny cafe in Cairo, Georgia, there was just the two of them. The urge to speak at last was as strong as the anxiety. With caution, Ethan got begun. He admitted to Kim that he had spent years feeling misinterpreted and criticized. He described the agony of believing that his mother had put control before empathy. Kim didn't interrupt for the first time. She didn't stand up for herself. She paid attention. Her voice was quieter than Ethan had heard in years when she finally spoke. She acknowledged that she had been too strict, too domineering, and too unable to accept her kids as unique people. She expressed her sadness for the course of events to Ethan. Not everything was resolved by that conversation. However, it opened a door that had been closed for many years. Ethan and Kim started to rebuild in the months that followed, but they did it cautiously and slowly, with setbacks. Kim didn't instantaneously become the ideal mother, and Ethan didn't instantly forget the hurt of the past. However, they kept making the decision to attempt. Kim became interested in Ethan's love of restoring vintage cars and began going to his car exhibitions. She knew that being there was important, even though she didn't always grasp the mechanics. In turn, Ethan began to call his mother from time to time, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He carefully reintroduced her into certain aspects of his life, while maintaining the limits. From stillness to brief exchanges, from bitterness to hesitant respect, and finally, to something like love once more, their relationship changed. Not the naive love of a youngster who believed his mother was perfect, but the mature love of a man who understood that parents are fallible human beings who can occasionally change. There is still a long way to go. Ethan still has wounds, and he still has days when he finds it difficult to completely trust Kim. Kim still occasionally goes back to her previous behaviors. However, people now halt in those situations rather than slamming doors and severing connections. They inhale. Rebuilding takes time, they remind themselves. The story of Kim and Ethan has grown to be one of the most compelling storylines for viewers of Welcome to Plathville, not because it is flawless, but because it is genuine. Their connection demonstrates how love is complex, mending is messy, and reconciliation takes time. However, it also demonstrates that despite the splintered nature of a relationship, there is always hope for improvement, space for development, and the potential for a new chapter. The progression of Kim and Ethan's relationship is ultimately about learning to bear the past in a different way rather than forgetting it. It's about sharing the suffering rather than enduring it alone. And it's about demonstrating that forgiveness may start to mend even the most severe wounds. But the Plath family was well known for their music, their rigorous customs, and their ongoing conflict between the old and the new. Viewers have witnessed Ethan, Micah, Mariah, and others struggle for their freedom throughout the years. This time, however, the emphasis was on Veronica, the lady who had gradually assimilated into their life due to her ties to Kim and Barry's world. Veronica was initially greeted with open arms. She frequently attempted to mediate the conflict between the younger Plath siblings and their parents, and she had a cheerful face and a natural laugh. She assisted Lydia with chores, attended family dinners, and even sat next to Kim while they had lengthy discussions about obedience and faith. Everyone believed she would become a permanent part of their close-knit group for a while. However, something altered. It began with little things, like Veronica's refusal to participate in the lengthy hymns sung in the living room or her excuses when discussions veered into rigid religious doctrine. Then, when Barry inquired about her future intentions, there were awkward silences. "Will you and the family keep going for walks?" he would ask, and Veronica would smile obliquely without explicitly responding. Veronica finally set the family down one tearful evening. Micah folded his arms and rested against the wall, Lydia gripped her hands uneasily, and Ethan and Olivia were on a visit. Kim and Barry sat up straight, feeling that something was about to happen. Veronica cleared her throat. Despite her trembling voice, her words were powerful. She looked around at the eager faces and continued, "I need to be honest with all of you. I feel like I don't belong here. I've made a sincere effort, but I secretly don't want to be a member of this family the way you expect me to be." A startled stillness descended upon the room. Kim's expression tensed. "Why don't you want to be a member of this family?" "Veronica, families are forever. You stay here once you get here." Slowly, Veronica shook her head. "Family is not a cage in my opinion. I see it as freedom, choice, and love. However, I feel like I'm being asked to give up my identity here. I am no longer able to do it." Barry spoke in a firm but restrained tone as he leaned forward. "Veronica, this family has morals. You're walking away from everything that makes us strong if you leave." The silence was finally broken by Lydia. She spoke in a low, almost begging voice. "However, you claim to enjoy spending time with us. We made you feel a home, you said." As Veronica gazed at Lydia, her eyes grew softer. "I did, my love. And you will always be loved by me. However, love does not need me to become someone I am not. I must lead a life that is authentic to who I am." Mariah grinned slightly as he sat cross-legged on the floor. Nobody knew it as well as she did. With her hair thrown back, Mariah remarked, "She's right. Just because you're afraid of losing them doesn't mean you can keep them in this family." Veronica has the guts to acknowledge what most of us had to discover the hard way. Despite her best efforts to conceal them, Kim's eyes began to well up with tears. "You believe that we are a cage," she muttered. "You believe we have only set you up. But, Veronica, we showed you love." "I'm sure you did," Veronica said softly, "and I will always be appreciative. However, love devoid of freedom is control, not love. And I can't continue to act like this." The dispute went on long into the night. As Olivia gently put a hand on Veronica's shoulder to support her, Ethan became agitated and began to pace back and forth. "She deserves to make her own choices, just like we all did," Micah added, looking serious despite his typically light-hearted demeanor. At last, Veronica got to her feet. Her voice was calm now, but her hands were shaking. "I won't be bidding farewell forever. I'm stating that I am unable to be what you desire. I'll stay in touch if you consider me a friend who comes to visit, laughs, and shares memories. But I can't be a part of this family if it means losing myself. I won't." The gathering fell silent as her words sank into everyone's emotions. There was neither cheering nor a theatrical hug. The following morning, Veronica prepared a little bag. Lydia sobbed into her shoulder as she gave her a firm hug. Mariah winked at her in agreement. Olivia and Ethan agreed to see how she was doing. Standing in the doorway, caught between pride and hurt, were Kim and Barry. The air felt lighter when Veronica left the Plath residence. She was able to breathe guilt-free for the first time in months. She was choosing herself, not leaving them. And perhaps, just possibly, the family would realize that sometimes the only way to properly love is to step away. But the Plath family was giddy with anticipation on a sunny spring morning in Cairo, Georgia. All of the siblings had decided to get together for a family firsts day for the first time in years. Olivia had proposed the idea, believing it would be therapeutic if each of them tried something new, something they had never done before, as a means of making new memories that went beyond the hurts of the past. Despite their breakup, Kim and Barry had made the decision to put the children's needs ahead of their own. Barry murmured softly as he surveyed the yard where everyone had congregated, "It's important." For once, Kim nodded without protest, saying, "We need to see ourselves not just as what we've lost, but as what we can begin again." Even she realized that the focus of the day was family, not dominance or making a statement. The younger Plath kids were bouncing up and down. Mercy wanted to try roller skating for the first time, Amber had brought out a box of chalk for the driveway, and Isaac was showing everyone the drone he had saved up for, promising to record all day. Ever the adventurer, Micah grinned as he said that his first would be preparing a complete lunch for everyone by himself, something he acknowledged he had never done before. Wearing her typical bold look, Mariah announced to the family that she would be performing a song she had never shared before. Though more reserved, Ethan had finally consented to participate by test driving a tractor on the family property with Barry at his side. He had avoided doing this since the breakup because he was worried it would bring up too many painful memories. Mercy's try at roller skating kicked off the day. As Micah studied her, the whole family gathered on the gravel driveway to watch her sway. "I'm feeling like a newborn deer." With her arms flailing, she giggled. However, her siblings encouraged her rather than making fun of her. When he saw her resolve, even Ethan smiled a little. The yard erupted in cheers as she eventually walked a few feet on her own before falling to the ground. There was joy instead of stress, as Mercy's laughter reverberated. Amber's chalk drawing came next. She made the bold decision to paint a huge mural over the driveway, depicting the Plath family standing together in a brilliant sun. Mariah was kneeling next to her while she worked, adding gold and purple embellishments. Olivia watched from a distance, her eyes watering. "Are you conscious of what you're doing?" Softly, she inquired. "Even if it rains, the memory you're creating will endure forever. We will never forget this day." Amber smiled, pleased with her creation. When Micah's first arrived, the family assembled by the outdoor kitchen. As he announced that he was going to make Plath-style tacos, he got out pots, pans, and spices. There was mayhem. He burned one tortilla, splashed cumin all over the counter, and once almost dropped the pan, but the family was laughing, not judging. "Look at you, Micah. I didn't think you had this in you," Kim remarked, clapping her fists. Micah smiled. "Neither did I." Even Ethan acknowledged, "Not bad, man," as they eventually savored his wonderful but slightly overcooked tacos. More than anything else, Micah seemed to be warmed by just one remark: "I'd eat this again." Then Mariah's turn came. She went to the porch with her guitar and took a seat. As she strummed the opening notes of her song, the family fell silent. It was an optimistic song about finding light in the dark, not a melancholy ballad as they had anticipated. Words of forgiveness, fresh starts, and having the guts to go forward reverberated throughout the chorus. Barry wiped his eyes as she sang. Even Kim, who is typically emotionally reserved, appeared moved. Olivia grinned proudly as Ethan, who had not said anything, nodded slightly in admiration. Mariah's voice was for all of them, not just for her, for the first time in a long time. Ethan came forward at last. His hands were in his pockets, and he appeared anxious. He spoke slowly. "I haven't touched a tractor with Dad in years. I usually steered clear of it since it seemed like I would be moving backward rather than ahead. But I'll do it today." Barry's eyes grew softer, and he walked Ethan to the tractor parked by the barn without saying anything. With his hands grasping the wheel, Ethan climbed into the seat while the family watched. Beside him, Barry provided guidance without exerting control. Dust flew behind Ethan as he circled back across the field as the engine roared to life. He leaped to the ground as he stopped, and Barry gathered him in an embrace. It was genuine. It wasn't forced. A ceasefire between parent and son, in silence. As the evening came to a close, Isaac's drone captured the family seated around the lights, enjoying Micah's tacos. Mercy's skates were left in the grass, Mariah's guitar was leaning against the porch, and the chalk mural was glowing dimly in the twilight. They weren't merely a family that was notorious for disobedience, rules, and turmoil, for once. Regardless of how chaotic the past had been, they were a family creating firsts together. Baby steps toward a future they might decide to create. "This is what healing looks like," Olivia muttered as the drone circled overhead. Everyone seemed to concur in their own modest way. It's not perfect, but it's possible. As stars filled the Georgia sky that night, the Plath family slept as a family, daring to dream of fresh starts together, rather than just as individuals battling past scars. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Mina, and I hope you're having a great day. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the video.